on va continuer avec les sessions. Et la première présentation vient d'Australie avec le professeur Yann Ladour qui va nous parler sur leur entomologie dans le New Millennium. Je veux remercier M. Ladour pour être parmi nous. C'est un long voyage d'Australie ici et on va l'écouter sûrement avec beaucoup d'intérêt. Moi-même, je m'excuse parce que je ne vais pas rester pendant toute la session. Après, mes collègues de séance vont présider parce qu'il y a une réunion de board du conseil d'administration de la Société méditerranéenne à midi et je dois me retirer. M. Ladour, à vous la parole.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Dr. Ben Harkett and Dr. Chico for all their help in arranging me to come to Algeria. They asked me to give a talk on forensic entomology. It seemed a long way to come to give a talk on forensic entomology, but I decided that I'd try to put forensic entomology into perspective and look at where forensic entomology has been, where it is in the present, and possibly where it's going in the future. This is why I call it 101 things you can do with a maggot or a fly larvae, and the reason is because more and more things are happening with forensic entomology. Forensic entomology has moved from what we normally do, which is the post-mortem interval, as you know. At a crime scene, most police are interested in how a body died and when a body died. Forensic entomology is one of the sciences that is used to determine when a body died. There are also many other things now where forensic entomology is useful. It now is we extract drugs from larvae, insect larvae, we extract gunshot residues, and we also can extract human DNA. I like to show this slide because it has nothing to do with forensics, but it has all to do with the insect that forensic entomologists mostly work with. Forensic entomologists work with flies. They fit into the group Diptera, which means two-winged. And it's the most useful insect after you've been dead for about 4 or 5 hours, especially in the summer months. You will find this fly comes and lays its eggs. And some flies, of course, aren't egg layers, some will just lay live larvae on the corpse. This slide is just to show you that in life we think that flies are a nuisance, and in death they become beneficial. Forensic entomology's involvement is in these 3 areas. The first is the health industry. The health industry covers things like maggot therapy, where maggots are put into wounds to stop gangrene, or they're used to show neglect with old people, with bed sores and things like that. They're also used to determine in food. Sometimes food is sold to the general public, and it sometimes has insect larvae in them. The other part of forensic entomology is what we call coronial inquest, which includes sudden death and suicides. And on top of that, of course, is the main sort of work that we do, which is homicides and determining the post-mortem interval. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a rundown on the basics in biology of forensic entomology, how it works. Okay, it works like this. When you are dead, or actually when you're alive, you have flies come to you, but when you're especially dead and wounded or just lying still, what happens is flies come along and lay eggs on you in various places. Most of the orifices, eyes, nose, ears, mouth, depending if your clothes are on, the other orifices, and of course places like hairline, armpits, and so on. The stages are what we are most concerned with because it's these stages that we measure. We measure these stages by length of time. Insects are ectothermic, which means that they operate according to the environmental temperature, and they're not like us, we are endotherms. and we control our own temperature. So really flies develop by the environmental temperature, and if it's warmer, it's a faster developmental cycle, and if it's cooler, it's a slower developmental cycle. Flies like to develop around about 27, 28 degrees Celsius. So the stages are: female comes to the body, female lays eggs, or live larvae. And this at 27 degrees Celsius, the eggs would take about 12 hours, maybe 18 hours to hatch. This is what eggs look like. Eggs are about 0.5 millimetre long. This is eggs on skin, and this just shows you the enormous number of eggs that you can get from females. So this would be more than one female fly would come along and lay eggs. After these eggs hatch, they turn into what we call maggots or fly larvae, and these have 3 stages. Maggots look like this. Okay, you get all sorts of maggots. You get smooth maggots on your left. You get hairy maggots, and there's 2 different species out there. If you're law enforcement, for instance, and you're collecting maggots from the crime scene, and you package hairy maggots with smooth maggots, by the time they get to an entomologist, they've disappeared. So this is the next phase, and this has 3 stages. As you can see, I've tried to put the times on the last cycle. Each of those stages takes about 20 hours, so from first stage to second stage to third stage. And in each of these stages you can measure the growth of the fly larvae or the maggot. Following this, the last stage of the maggot becomes what we call the wandering phase, and this particular stage moves off the body, and either if it's outside will move some 10 metres or even further from the body and bury into the soil. If it's in a house, then most probably along the walls or under wardrobes or under other items of furniture. What happens at that point is the last stage is the fly larvae purges its guts, it purges its alimentary tract, and it then what we call pupates. This is the pupal stage. It's a static phase, and what happens in here is metamorphosis, and metamorphosis is where the larva becomes a fly. This is the longest stage, and it's also the stage that needs to be collected if it is at a crime scene. This stage can be anything from, if you go back to the thing, can be anything from 7 to 14 days in length. So it's very important that you actually collect this if it's at a crime scene. Okay, after metamorphosis, now comes these things called flies. Most people are familiar with flies. We have 3 stages of flies that come to the body. We've got fresh dead. This particular stage comes to the body. This particular species becomes to the body. This is a common species in Europe and in Australasia. And this is about 4 hours after you're dead, in other words, fresh dead. This second group of flies, so this is another primary strife fly. This particular fly, for instance, doesn't lay eggs. So when you are working with entomological systems, you need to know the biology of the insect you are working with, largely because if a particular species doesn't lay eggs, this can be 12, even longer hours that aren't taken into account when you determine the time frame. So this one lays live larvae. This one comes along in the bloat phase, so about 4 days after you're dead in summer, and it lays eggs on the body. This is just a representative of this particular stage. And then finally, after this fly comes the third stage, and this is when there are no longer fluids left. The fluids have left the body, and we're left all with hair and skin and cartilage. After this, there are no more little fly waves that come to the body. What happens is then we get interchange between flies and beetles, and so we end up with with a whole group of different beetles that come to the body. The top three beetles are actually indicator species. These ones do not use the corpse for any other purpose than to eat the fly larvae. The bottom two species are beetles that prefer to consume the hair and the skin, and the one on the bottom right prefers to bury it. So there are different sorts of beetles that will come to the body. These all fit into these different categories. We have necrophagous species, which I talked about, which are the flies. Then you have predators. Some of the fly larvae are also predators. You also have vespa or wasps that come to the body as well. And if you know the life cycle of a wasp, you can also determine time frames based on wasps. There are omnivorous species. A lot of these are beetles that come to the body, and we just talked about a few of those. And then there's this other group, the last group, called inventive species. These are species of insect that come to a body by happen chance. There's a great little story about a person in Australia that was murdered, and when they found the body, they found a dead grasshopper on the body. And this particular grasshopper does not come normally to cadavers. And it was found dead on this person, so maybe it was killed while the person was being dumped. Anyway, this grasshopper only had 5 legs, because insects normally have 6. And when they found the suspect, they asked him to take his clothes off. They removed his clothes, and they shook them out. And in his trousers, they found the leg of the grasshopper. And this, the person confessed. So sometimes you do get species of insects that come to a body that don't really have much relevance, but sometimes they can have relevance. Okay, a little bit about the history of forensic entomology. Most pathologists think forensic entomology is an art. We have a hard time in Australia convincing pathologists that, in fact, forensic entomology is a science. And I guess it's a very young science. It's only had an empirical measurement done with it since the Second World War, when the Americans took it up. Prior to this, it has a history steeped in a long history. We have Egyptians. We have the Chinese. The Chinese did the first case study in the 13th century. And then we have the Italians, who were part of the microscope revolution, and they were the people who determined that insects had a life history. The only other case study prior to the Second World War is the one in France that was conducted when a house was demolished and a baby was found dead in the house. An entomologist determined how long the baby had been dead. After this, there was nothing until the Second World War, and the Americans took it up and it became a science. These are the countries that practice forensic entomology. Okay, well, these are the countries that do a little bit of work in forensic entomology. What I have, the reason I have these names up here is because I think in a future slide you will see the different societies that exist for forensic entomology. There are something like 17 or 18 countries now that at least are in touch with forensic entomology or are practicing forensic entomology. Not all of these countries actually do research in forensic entomology, but it's becoming more popular. And I'm sure I've left some countries out. This is where forensic entomology is. It has about 450 published papers in forensic entomology now, and 6 major books have been produced in forensic entomology. If you look at the number of publications, you can actually see how they've grown in the last 6 years. Well, I'm sure by the end of this decade, by the end of 2010, most of the forensic entomology in this decade will have been doubled. As you can see, it started off very early, and there was not much done until the last 2 to 3 decades. These are the different societies that occur, if you aren't already aware. The one that's probably most appropriate to Algerians is the European Association of Forensic Entomology. This is now 6 years old, and in the last meeting, year, something like 25 countries were represented and about 120 people attended. So it's quite a number, and as you can see, the science is becoming more visual. Just to give you an overview of some of the things that are developed for forensics, we now have, because I'm trying to talk about what is going on now, what is going on in the future. We have things like this. We create posters, for instance, on how to collect insects off bodies. We create brochures and pamphlets on how we collect and the sorts of species that we'll come across. These are just examples. We have toolkits. Toolkits vary from country to country. A lot of countries, of course, don't have toolkits, but in Australia, for instance, and in the US, toolkits have been developed for forensic personnel to attend crime scenes and to collect off bodies. And of course, these toolkits have things in it that you don't normally get. With forensic officers, you don't have nets, you don't have ventilator containers and things like this. And of course it comes with forms to fill in, and these become quite useful, especially when an entomologist can't attend a crime scene. You have law enforcement who is doing the work, and you can actually use this to at least get some information back about what's going on at the scene. And of course this was produced by the European Association of Forensic Entomology this year. It's the best practice paper that's come out in forensic entomology on how to do it. So a number of different countries participated in this, and I think it's quite a useful tool for those people who are setting out to do forensic entomology. Okay, just a little bit about the research that does go on in forensics. All I've talked about is the science, but there's a lot of research that goes on. I'm not sure if you're aware, but in the University of Tennessee, there's the Anthropological Research Facility, which is a facility whereby you actually can experiment with humans. And so we have strong ties with that because the Americans are interested in early taphonomy, and we now do a lot of work there in determining how bodies decompose, and of course we're interested in the entomological component. So what I'm going to do is just give you a little bit of insight into one of our research projects that we do at the University of Tennessee. This facility was established in 1981 by the University of Tennessee. It's mainly run by anthropologists who are interested in bone collections, but they've now expanded, and they work with a number of different agencies. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to build databases on contemporary bone collections. This is what happens, is once you donate your body, you decompose, you're placed into a cardboard box and used in a collection. There's about 3,000 bodies now in the collection, and these are used for both forensic and medical purposes. This is the sorts of things that you see inside the facility. It used to be 1 acre, it's now 4 acres, and it's going to go to 15 acres. So about 25 people a month donate their bodies for experimental purpose after they die in the US. So this is really something you can harbour and something you can do in the research that can be done. You can't do this anywhere else. These are the sorts of activities that occur where bodies are placed in water and see how they decompose. Some are placed under concrete, some are just placed under bush and shrubs, and it's determined how long people decompose. The sort of work that we're interested in is we have, in Australia, we have a number of homicides that have been committed, and bodies have been placed in refuse bins, and we're interested in just what happens inside a bin, and I'm just going to show you a little bit of the work that we've done in the last couple of years at this facility. So what we're interested in is how long it takes insects to get into the bin, and for us that's important because if we know all of the information about, in Tennessee the climate is tropical and you get large masses of eggs around the nose. This is in day 3 of decomposition outside the bin. As you can see, large maggot masses are around the head region. This is day 6. Okay, same body. This is day 9 inside the bin. You get to see some of the insect material starting to form and pupating and coming up the side of the bin. This is day 10. Day 15. This is day 15 inside the bin. You can actually see quite a large maggot masses. This is of course with the lid on. This is what the bin starts to look like at day 55. This is the human inside the bin at day 55. We've got to remember that we're 75% water, and so we end up sort of in a soup. We finished this experiment at day 240. As you can see, there's not much left of the human. It just compressed into the bottom of the bin. We emptied this person out onto the ground, and what the anthropologists were interested in is the decomposition process that had gone on for that period of time. What we were interested in, of course, is the temperature inside the bin, and as you can see the temperature inside the bin for about the first 9 days, and the purple line you can see, it actually shows the rectal temperature. You have a rectal thermometer placed inside the body, and as you can see, as the maggot masses inside the body create an exothermic reaction, you actually get an increased heat inside the bin. And of course, if you extend that to the next 20 to 30 days, you still see that there's a large amount of heat produced inside the bin. Okay, what we're interested in as entomologists is what species got inside the bin and what species were flying around. These are the 5 species that were available, but only 2 species got inside the bin. And this was very important because obviously not all species will go into an enclosed space. The results for us were that as you can see, you do decompose differently in the bin, as we've seen from the pictures, but from an entomological perspective, it takes about 6 or 7 days before you've actually got the fly in the bin. So if you were going to give a time frame on a bin that was closed with a body in it, you would have to extend your time frame somewhat from the one that's located outside on the ground. Okay. Just to give you another perspective of what other things have been going on with forensic entomology around the place. This is another study that's been done to show that you can extract gunshot residue. A lot of American colleagues and Italian colleagues extract drugs. It's called entomotoxicology. This is an extension of that, and this is where you actually extract gunshot residues out of maggots. The aims of this experiment were just simply to try and, as I said, to see whether or not you could determine if flies were useful or the maggots were useful in detecting gunshot residue. Or do they take up gunshot residues when they feed on a body? The questions were these. Do fly larvae ingest those elements? Can these elements be extracted? And are these elements eliminated post-feeding, in other words, in the pupal phase? That's just a gun. The major elements are barium, antimony and lead in gunshot residues. And the other things, they're the elements that we tried to detect. How we did it was we just shot some rump steak, some beef, and we just allowed larvae to feed on it. And then we determined from the larvae whether or not you could extract the gunshot residues. These were the particular species that we placed onto the beefsteak to consume it. These are the sorts of results that you get if you look at the control. The control is quite low with those 3 elements. And if you look at the 2 replicates that we did, gunshot residues 1 and 2, you see the different hours when they were sampled, the gunshot residues for lead were still quite high. If you look at the barium, it's the same for the barium. If you look at antimony, it's the same for antimony. So the conclusions from this experiment were these. The blowfly larvae do ingest some of those elements. The ratio of the lead, antimony and barium can confirm the presence of gunshot residue. There's generally the actively feeding larvae are the best component to actually test. However, we have now demonstrated that some of these elements are contained in the pupal case. So this might be useful, especially if a body's skeletonized. You find pupae associated with that skeleton. You can actually determine whether or not the person was shot by extracting gunshot residue from the pupal case. Okay, so really just to summarise, this is the sort of work that goes on globally in forensic entomology, not just in our labs, but in labs around the world. A lot of work's now been done on profiling flies, in other words, determining their DNA, and looking at all their developmental stages. And this way we can determine what fly species are what. This has been done in Europe, it's been done in the US, it's been done in Africa, in South Africa, and it's been done in Australia. Gunshot residues, as I've just talked about, this is also extended, as I said, into drugs. So many countries are involved, like the Italians, the Americans, with extracting drugs such as narcotics. Methamphetamine is also one that's now being used. It can be used to determine antidepressants, such as citalopram and other drugs like that. We also and various places around the world are interested in what happens when you decompose in water, both in fresh water and in marine environments. In Canada, there's a very good study in Vancouver Harbour where they put bodies into the harbour, or pigs actually they used, and they have determined what the sea creatures are that come along and feed off the corpse. There are various places around the world where pigs are the substitute for humans, where they're hung, and see how you decompose in the hanging environment. And now there's a lot of work being done where people are interested in how you decompose inside a car following suicide, or inside a vehicle following suicide. So I guess what forensic entomology is trying to do in the last, if you like, 10 years is develop a series of tools that may be useful for law enforcement. The trouble is most law enforcement don't know about these tools. The other thing is that most law enforcement agencies don't actually use forensic entomology. Maybe with education processes and the science that's coming out of this particular topic and the increase in popularity of this science, maybe through documentaries on TV and also through general literature, possibly this will turn people around and start using this science. Thanks.